Hello and welcome to Project Home DIY. My name is Christine Gloat, the owner, founder, and curator of the Project Home boxes. I'm excited to get started on this one, and it is big if you haven't already noticed. So I wanted something, of course, as always, functional, but we can use this in so many different ways. And my favorite way is I pictured this in a corner of my house with some nice floral and just some knickknacks in it, in a corner, and I love the way it's turned out and looked. So let's start with a whole new process of creating our own stain this month. So that's pretty exciting. Unfortunately, the stain does take a couple days to marinate, if so to speak. So you have to start this process early. But what you're gonna need to do is, mine's already done, but there's this piece of steel wool, and that is quad 0 fine steel wool. Take distilled vinegar and add that into a mason jar and let it sit for at least 2 days, so 48 hours. And it may not look like much. It may start looking dirty like this. A lot of the rusty parts coming from the lid. But what will happen is the vinegar will eat the steel wool and it'll create a natural stain and chemical reaction when it's applied to wood. So this is with the natural stain on it. This is almost like a forever stain. It'll always be there. It won't wash off like a thin down paint would. It's a forever stain, and it will constantly usually change color too, depending on where your wood is at. If it's in the sunlight, it could change even darker and darker over the years. So what we've done before is, with this exact mix, we've taken real fresh cut timber wood and cut it. It's all fresh cut, so it's brand new wood, and put this on it, like rolled it on with a big roller, because these were big, huge, long pieces, and then put up them in a shop and made a huge barnwood looking wall. So this is a super cool way that you can cheap make something a sort of a stain, and it's a forever stain, so it's gonna always be there. So after a couple days, when you get to this icky dirty point, open your jar. Okay. Get your jar open, and it's stinky, it's rusty, smelly. But before we use it, we're gonna get rid of this steel wool. And I'm gonna put gloves on because I don't like my hands to smell metal-y, like I've been playing in a bunch of coins. Ugh. So I'm gonna put on some gloves. So just take and remove the steel wool, but squeeze out the vinegar. We don't want to waste that. That's precious potion right there. So just set this to the side. There's our vinegar. Then you're gonna take some sort of cheesecloth or cloth of some sort and just pour your solution into it and let it seep through. We're just filtering out any chunks. So there's gonna be chunks. There's a lot of chunks from my lid. Mainly it's from the lid, but we'll just seep it all through this rag just to get it cleaned out, kind of. You don't have to do this, and I honestly have never done this, but it's suggested to kind of clean this out a little. And I'm just gonna pour it right back into this jar. It's best to store it in a jar, don't store it in the cup. There is a lot of sediment, but now it's cleaned out. Okay, so now it's cleaned out. You didn't ruin the rag. There's all the sediment. The rag is not ruined. It can be washed, and I can actually use it to stain as well. But I'm gonna pour this back in here now. And see, there's my cleaned up solution. So there's no big chunks in there, just emptied it out with cleaning that up. So, first things first, oh my gosh, and look, I dripped some right there. It's already working. If you want to assemble your crate first, you can. The only problem is your metal will be in there, in the sides, and you could possibly get this on the metal, and it will make metal rust. So it is a way that you can make metal rust. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure if this has a plastic coat, if the galvanized metal here has a plastic coating over it, it's not gonna rust. If it doesn't and it's raw metal, it will rust. So I don't 100% know. But you can already see it's making my rag turn colors. Here's my dark spot. So just take the rag, and I'm taking the rag that I had all that I sifted the pieces out with, and I'm just wiping on the stain on all sides. It'll get darker and darker as you go, and you can easily see where you missed or didn't get to, and just set these pieces to the side. So go ahead and stain everything, and we will get to putting it together after it's stained. Pretty simple project this month. Okay, I'm about 3 minutes or so into staining my pieces. I just did this one. This one is already well on its way. You can see where, I don't need to get back here because the galvanized covers it up, but you can see the difference. Look at that. Pretty amazing stuff. So if you see that you, once it dries, missed some spots, you won't see some of this, but you can go back over it. If your stain, you can't fix it once it's done. We can sand off some and lighten it a little bit, but if you're noticing that your stain is too dark, you can dilute this with more vinegar. I've had stuff that I've kept for years, like almost 3 years, in a big, huge gallon jug that we did the barnwood with, and it got so dark it would like turn the wood black. So we took like a little bit of it and added like 4 parts vinegar, just white distilled vinegar to it, and thinned it out a little bit so then it's usable again. So if that happens, you can always thin it back out. So I am setting these down here in front of just a small, this is my small space heater. It just helps things dry, and it really starts pulling out this vinegar steel wool trick color. So I like to just set my pieces in there, let them dry quicker. It just gets done faster and I can move on. So that's my little trick with that. But that's why you see me bending over, putting those down there, putting them in the heat. I'll leave them there for about 15 minutes and then I'll be able to build it. So it really won't take me that long. But it's quite an amazing technique. I do know that a lot of paint stores will have a packet called Forever Stain, and you mix it in, I think, a gallon of water. It's actually used on houses, so like old barnwood or houses that get an old barnwood look to them, they're actually forever stained. They don't, a lot of them don't use stain, it's just forever stain. And you buy this pack, I think it's $25, and it makes you a gallon. This is from the paint store. And it smells the exact same way. It smells like vinegar and metal. And this is by far much cheaper version. But with the Forever Stain, you don't have to wait a couple days like you do for this chemical reaction to take place. But it's still much more cost effective to go that route. So I'm gonna let those pieces dry. I got everything done here. Do my handle. I guess we'll see if it rusts because I am touching the handle, the galvanized metal. But it won't just wipe off tables. This will clean right up, so And look how much I have left, tons. So you can literally do brand new wood. You can make a whole barnwood wall. And what's even cooler is you could take and dilute several different batches, but to dilute them in different amounts, like 4-to-1, 1-to-1, none, like the strongest, and those will all come up with a different color range. So this stuff is pretty unique and very user-friendly. So I'm gonna let these dry a little bit and we'll come back and assemble the crate. All right, my pieces are all nice and dry. It's been about 20 minutes, so it doesn't take very long, but I'm gonna set the pieces of wood out just like how they are set out on your instructions. And I encourage you to do the same so we can follow along step by step and not get lost on how to assemble this project. So let me get those set out. Okay, and look at that wood. How cool is that? From two like almost household items, just a simple chemical reaction. And this is what you get. So you should have a bunch of screws. We are gonna start with the short, there's 8 of them. It's the shorter brass screws, so the small brass screws, and then you have the long brass screws, which are gonna be used for the bottom, which will be our second step. But our first step is to connect these 2 end pieces, they'll end up going right here, to these side pieces first. Then we'll slip in our galvanized metal, and then we'll put the base on. So it must go in that way or else you won't be able to get the metal in. So you can see they're already all pre-drilled, which is phenomenal, right? Pretty amazing and nice and handy. But these slits must be placed in, so then this piece can slide in once it's built, okay? If you have it towards the outside, these anchor nuts, which is what's in here, will not match up. You won't be able to screw it in. So make sure that you have this dado cut faced inside when we're attaching these. So very first thing, all you're gonna need is a screwdriver. Simple. I believe, of course I don't have my ratcheting screwdriver because, you know, everybody takes my tools. So I always have the coolest, but, you know, I'm gonna just poke these screws in and line up the anchor points. You might have to wiggle the screws around a little bit, but they'll go in. And then just attach those. Make sure that you don't attach the screws too deep. You could pull out those anchor nuts. We don't want that to happen. Okay, the first one's always a little awkward because we don't have anything to hold on to. And it's nothing to brace it off of, so it's always kind of weird. Okay, our second one, I'm gonna hang this off the side. Goes in just like this. Okay, another 2 screws. Remember, don't over tighten. Okay, I had to angle that one just a little bit this direction so I could get it into that anchor bolt. You may have to do that. They just have to be flush in here so the metal can slip in. So they don't have to be super sunk in, which they shouldn't because they could pull out the anchor nuts. We don't want that. Okay, now this will be easy to put on because it's all set up for us. Okay, so there's one of the anchor nuts that won't line up. You can, a couple options here. This is not, it's going to be sturdy enough for its use, but if you can't get one of them lined up, that's okay, you can leave it empty. It's not gonna matter once the bottom's attached and everything's attached, it won't matter one bit, but I can't get this anchor nut lined up with the hole. If you want to for sure make it lined up with the hole, get a drill bit, drill that hole out, and you can line it up then. But I'm not going to worry about that because the structure is totally fine. So I'm not going to worry about lining that one up. So now that you have all the pieces, the four first pieces attached, you can slide in the galvanized. It covers your screws up, doesn't make it look ugly. And everything just tights, which is awesome. Okay, it should be flat right here. There's where the galvanized. You can paint the galvanized metal. You can spray paint it. You could paint it with latex paint. You can paint it however you want. A latex paint is gonna scratch off, but more than likely this isn't gonna be played with, touched, used, moved, kind of thing, so you don't really have to worry about that. Okay, so attaching our bottom base piece. Just wiggle it in there, but there are countersunk holes drilled on this base piece, which means that it'll allow our screw to, or actually this is a bolt, screws have pointy tips, but this bolt to sink into the wood and be flush, so we won't have 4 screw bolt heads hanging out of the top. So this is not the countersunk side, this is the countersunk side. You can see they're a little bit deeper. So countersunk side out, and then hopefully all these line up. If not, you're gonna have to maybe finagle your wood a little bit. But again, if it doesn't line up, drill it out or leave it. You can also put a run of wood glue underneath there if you want, if you have it. You can totally do that. I have 2 that are perfectly lined up. See how these are countersunk? They sink right into the wood, so we won't have a screw hanging out. Okay, there is the base. Before I keep going on, I'm going to sand a little tiny bit. So you can sand this and you'll have a natural wood edge come back through. And it's super forgiving and easy to sand with that forever stain. Wiped it off a little bit, but that's what the crate looks like. Then I can put in the divider pieces. These just slide right in. There's that one. You don't have to use these depending on what you put in there. And there's that one. Handle. So you should have a little tiny screwdriver hex screw attachment in your kit. I'm going to grab mine. There's a screwdriver on one side, a Phillips screwdriver, and a hex screw on the other. But this hex screw will let you attach the handles. Okay, now deciding on the last piece, there are 4 black screws in your kit. Those are used to attach your handle. Your handle can go all the way down to the bottom here, and so you'd use 2 on each side. And then your handle is stationary, it'll always be up. Or if you want it a little bit higher, you can only put in 1 screw and it will bend back and forth. I'm going to put in 1 screw and I'm just gonna eyeball where that goes on the side, just like this. I'm looking at the centerpiece, centering my handle metal within that. This wood is soft, so it's not super hard to screw into. Okay, there's that one. Now I'm gonna do the other side. I'm gonna look at it and make sure it's even, and then that it's centered. That's it. There is the finished project for August. And I can't believe it's already August, but I say that every month. So I'm just gonna go with time flies. So there is your finished crate. I can't wait to see the exciting things that you guys do with this, because you take these projects and you make them absolutely amazing. So it's always fun to see that. Make sure that you join our VIP group on Facebook. There'll be an album with the August crate in it, and you can see how others created their project, what they did to decorate with it and use it around their homes in both functional and decor ways. Can't wait to see you next time for September. I have a little bit of a peek. Do you want to see a peek of a sneak peek? Well, this goes with September. It's like the most perfect decor piece and beautiful floral to go with anything of the fall sort. Can't wait to see you next time, and let's get creative. See you later.